Crime is down in San Diego and in some cases to the lowest levels in decades. The new numbers and the one violent crime that's bucking the trend.
More arrests are not the answer, nor is moving people from place to place without help.
Local cops say homelessness is not a problem they can continue to police. Why their union says the answer lies in the expansion of the convention center.
And that trainers got burned and hurt trying to save the horses.
And meet a North County boy who is using his love of art to help those recovering from the Lilac Fire. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. New numbers are in and San Diego city leaders say crime is down by more than 7%. KPBS reporter Jade Hindman has the story.
So you can see the sign right outside of the police headquarters, join our team. That is one of the big efforts that the San Diego Police Department is pushing, despite the number of crimes being at a record low. So let's talk about those numbers. Crime is down 7.3% since 2016 in San Diego. In a city with 1.3 million people, the police department says those numbers are good to see. So let's put some of those into perspective. Categories like theft and burglary are at the lowest point they've been since 1968. And there are more than 2,400 less victims of crime. And when compared to other large cities, San Diego has had one of the lowest crime rates for the last 4 years. Still, robbery is an area that needs work. The rate went up 1.7%.
Robbery increased 23 crimes compared to last year. And as we looked at what was going on with our robberies, a lot of our robberies are desperation crimes.
And officers say they will continue their efforts for crime prevention and officer recruitment. Jade Hindman, KPBS News.
Backers of an initiative that would raise money for homelessness, street repairs, and a convention center expansion have begun collecting signatures. The initiative, led by a coalition of tourism workers and homeless advocates, needs 71,000 signatures to qualify for the November ballot. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has more on a new endorsement for supporters.
Reduce homelessness, fix streets, and expand tourism. That's the group's tagline, but money for road repairs wouldn't be made available until 2024. Instead, that money would go here to pay for a convention center expansion and fund homeless services.
Because homelessness is such a crisis right now, we need to address it right now, which means that we are front-loading the homeless dollars on the first 5 years, so we'll have $147 million being deployed immediately.
Yes for a Better San Diego was endorsed Monday by the San Diego Police Officers Association. They say policing homeless will not get people off the streets.
More arrests are not the answer, nor is moving people from place to place without help.
Backers of the initiative say it would raise $2 billion over 4 decades to reduce homelessness, money the group says would be bondable.
If you're able to bond on the money, you're able to build permanent supportive housing, and that's the critical component that is really lacking right now.
Last year, Mayor Kevin Faulkner brought a similar proposal to City Council that failed to make it to voters. That plan detailed exactly what a convention center expansion would look like, unlike for a Better San Diego's.
What this is it's a revenue stream to fund an expansion. The original proposal that the mayor brought forward last year defined it very specifically according to a plan that had been approved several years back. The only thing that is that's required in the ballot measure is that it's contiguous, and contiguous is defined as physically connecting to the original building.
Mayor Faulkner has not officially endorsed the initiative, but when discussing it at the recent State of the City address, he called it the, quote, missing piece to tackling homelessness. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
A major sell-off continued today on Wall Street with the biggest one-point drop in the history of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The Dow lost 1,175 points at the closing bell. Earlier in the day, trading was down more than 1,500 points. The volatility follows a string of heavy losses last week, cooling what's been a record-setting surge in recent months. The percentage drops today are substantial, but not as severe as what we saw during the 2008 financial crisis. Broadcom is sweetening the deal in its efforts to take over San Diego-based Qualcomm. The chipmaker is now offering $82 a share, and that's $12 a share more than Broadcom's original offer, and adds up to $121 billion. This would be the largest deal ever in the electronics industry. Qualcomm's board rejected the previous offer late last year. 8 San Diego businesses in San Diego have been caught violating the city's minimum wage law. Until now, the city would not name those businesses. But KPBS reporter Claire Tragesser got the list through a Public Records Act request and has more.
The city investigated the 8 businesses after employees filed complaints. All of them had to pay back wages, and 2 also had to pay extra fines to the city. The list includes a 7-Eleven franchise in San Ysidro, an El Pollo Loco franchise, Sand and Sea Liquor in Point Loma, the Incredible Cafe in Rancho Bernardo, and Pancho Villa Farmers Market in Normal Heights. Plus 2 national companies, Scholastic Inc. and CDS Staffing. Most business owners declined to comment to KPBS. But David Manis, the publisher of the San Diego Community News Network, gave a lengthy explanation. He publishes newspapers including San Diego Uptown News and Gay San Diego. He said he was not aware of a small detail in the city law that dictates how salespeople who work on commission are paid for sick time. Basically, they get an additional chunk of commissions when they are out sick. He said he corrected the mistake and avoided paying any extra fines to the city. Claire Tragesser, KPBS News.
One by one, San Diego County school districts are changing how they elect board members to avoid being sued under the California Voting Rights Act. KPBS education reporter Megan Burke says the Poway, Cajon Valley, and San Dieguito districts are next in line.
The change is similar to what's happened with several city councils across the state, where at-large elections are being replaced with more local district elections. The Voting Rights Act prohibits at-large elections if they block fair representation of minorities. The school districts are holding final public hearings on their plans for district elections. Cajon Valley Superintendent David Miyashiro says his district is making the move to avoid getting sued, not because the current model isn't working.
The board was already doing the right work representing the entire community. Not to say that it's going to do more harm than good, it's just, in most cases, it's not going to change much.
San Diego Unified is exploring whether to change its at-large runoffs. The city council, which governs those elections, recently rejected 4 proposals to do so. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
Attorney Corry Briggs' law firm is asking the state Supreme Court to review a ruling that ended a lawsuit against a Walmart development in Riverside County, an established legal precedent. iNews source reporter Brad Racino has more.
Briggs lost the Riverside County case in Superior Court after the judge issued severe sanctions against one of these nonprofits, a group called Creed 21, for refusing to produce one of its members for deposition. Creed 21 appealed that decision, lost, and now has asked the Supreme Court for a review. Briggs is perhaps best known for the hundreds of high-profile lawsuits he's filed against local governments and developers, challenging waterfront developments and commercial projects on behalf of nonprofits that, as iNews sources documented, he has created or controls. For example, Creed 21 and another Briggs nonprofit, San Diegans for Open Government, are both managed, legally represented, and financially supported by the Briggs Law Corporation. Both have exactly the same mission statement, and both list Briggs' cousin as their chief financial officer. Briggs' opponents, including the San Diego City Attorney's Office, have accused him of using these nonprofits as shell corporations to extract settlements. If the Walmart ruling stands, it could be used against these nonprofits Briggs represents in future cases. For KPBS, I'm iNews Source reporter Brad Racino.
iNews Source is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. Law students from the University of San Diego are kicking off a new free legal clinic tomorrow. They'll be working to help transgender people legally change their names and genders. KPBS Metro reporter Ann Chaboan has more.
Changing your name and gender marker on official documents is getting easier in California, but most people still need the help of a lawyer.
So this was prepared by the Transgender Law Center.
A.T. Furuya last year became the first person in California to be legally recognized as non-binary, neither male nor female. Furuya, who uses the gender-neutral pronoun they, works as the Transgender Youth Services Navigator at the LGBT Community Center. The gender change was not a cakewalk. It required plenty of paperwork and a court order. But Furuya says seeing non-binary on their birth certificate feels validating.
It's not just like a phase, and it's not just something that people are kind of making up, or, you know, it's real, and it's real for me.
Tomorrow, the LGBT Community Center will be hosting its first name and gender marker change clinic with volunteer law students. Supervising attorney Robert Gleason says the need for this kind of legal help is growing.
Up until now, all of that assistance has been provided by community nonprofits and community members, medical providers and therapists, and they're just simply overwhelmed with requests. So this was an opportunity for the legal community to come together and be able to provide assistance to the community in a way that we can.
The legal clinic is scheduled to take place on the first Tuesday of every month here at the LGBT Community Center in Hillcrest. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
The San Diego Zoo's conservation team is mourning the loss of one of its southern white rhinos. Chuck was 50 years old and a little bit of a celebrity because of the company he kept. He was the companion to Nola, the zoo's last northern white rhino. She died in 2015, leaving only 3 northern white rhinos in the whole world. The zoo says Chuck was suffering from age-related health problems and he was euthanized last week. Dry weather with the return of Santa Ana winds will be the weather story that is, for much of the week. Mark Mancuso has a closer look in tonight's forecast.
Dry weather is still with us, and looks like our dry pattern will be with us right through the middle of the month. Hopefully we'll start to see some changes then. What we do see changing are our temperatures over the next couple of days. Looks like another return of the low clouds and fog for the morning hours tomorrow. And then during the middle part of the week, I would say Wednesday into Thursday, we'll see that offshore flow, a bit of a Santa Ana, especially on Wednesday. Winds will start to relax a little bit Thursday. That brings warming. And then we'll see another trough approaching the state with some cooling starting on Friday. So as we take a look at our satellite, well, not too much to get excited about right now. Looking at the big picture here, just a few high clouds there coming down through central California. We've seen this pattern, haven't we? For tonight, clouds thickening up again, some areas of fog again early in the morning. Temperature drops down to about 52 degrees. Looking at temperatures tonight around the area, Oceanside down to 43, Long Beach 53. Ramona's around 40, Borrego Springs 52, and Mount Laguna, of course, higher terrain. It will be a little bit cooler. Looking at your weather Tuesday, we'll have mild conditions, warm in the interior. And as we check on the drought situation, well, you can see we're running a moderate to severe drought here in Southern California. As we take a look ahead, well, sunshine will be with us tomorrow after the morning low clouds and the fog. Forecast highs in the upper 60s here. Oceanside's around 70. Ramona hits 79. Borrego Springs, nice, 84. Mount Laguna's at 62. As we head through the end of the week, unfortunately, it just stays dry. So let's check on those numbers for you. Here along the coast, the temperature is rising Wednesday and Thursday, a little cooler Friday. As we head inland, very warm here Wednesday and Thursday. Temperatures back off into the weekend. And in the mountains, we'll see temperatures hovering in the low 60s, cooler Saturday. And here in the desert, warm, but temperatures coming down a notch on Saturday. For KPBS, I'm Mark Mancuso. Back to you, Ebony.
I'm John Yang. Tonight on the News Hour, another big sell-off on Wall Street. What does it mean for your retirement account? Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The newest thing in emergency medicine is not an amazing device. Instead, it's a new approach to older patients that helps them stay out of the hospitals. Associated Press reporter Carla Johnson has more.
Dwayne Dobschutz navigates city streets so his older patients don't have to. The nurse practitioner makes up to 4 house calls a day.
Home is the place that they want to be. They don't want to be in a nursing home. They don't even want to be in a good nursing home. They want to be where they're in control.
Okay, now sit forward for me. Okay, big breath.
And he becomes quite a helper by stopping to see me ever so often and taking some of the readings, and I don't have to go down to the hospital sometimes.
That's the goal of a new approach in emergency medicine, keeping older patients out of the hospital where they can become confused, even sicker.
We worry about functional decline. There's an adage that a day in the hospital requires about a week of recovery. That's just from the hospitalization, not necessarily the illness that brought them there.
Hospitals also have to worry about falls for patients who become disoriented in their new surroundings. Each day, 10,000 baby boomers turn 65, and emergency rooms are adapting for a graying population. About 100 hospitals in the United States have open geriatric emergency departments or trained ER teams in geriatrics care. Early research shows it's working to reduce unnecessary hospital admissions.
We're trying to, know them a little bit better, understand them a little better, and see exactly what they need, as opposed to just opening the door and saying, hey, you need to come into the hospital.
Do you have a Life Alert necklace or bracelet?
Yes, I do have a Life Alert.
Okay, great.
At Northwestern, they're called Jedi nurses for Geriatric Emergency Department Innovations. The nurses screen older patients with more time and care in quieter, more comfortable rooms. Dobschetz was a Jedi nurse before taking on his new role at the age of 70, making home visits on his trusty purple bicycle.
I moved from being the oldest nurse in the emergency department to a youngster comparison to the 90-year-olds. They seem to like the little bit of white hair that I have, the little that I have. And I can relate to them saying, I know I'm a young senior, but I do know that things have changed for me too.
A chance to connect with patients away from the frenetic pace of the ER. Carla Johnson, Associated Press.
Yeah, because I'm too old.
A 10-year-old San Diego County boy is using art to help others. Josiah Love has raised thousands of dollars for a horse trainer who was badly injured in the Lilac Fire. Recently, I spoke to him about his love for painting and his big heart. Josiah Love applies quick strokes of acrylic paint to a canvas.
Linda helps me with the sketch out.
After only a few lessons here at Art Adventure Studio in Oceanside, he says painting has become one of his favorite pastimes.
It was kind of hard, but really easy for me.
The 10-year-old says he especially likes replicating images of horses.
I really like them.
He's named one of his first creations Sadia, a Hebrew name meaning God's helper. And with the help of his mom, Josiah is selling prints to help Martine Belloc, a horse trainer burned in the Lilac Fire.
So we're very proud of him. And he loves to help. He's always been like that, so he's kind of wired that way.
Josiah's mom, Lori Love, tells us he got the idea to help after seeing images such as these captured on December 7th at the San Luis Rey Training Center in Bonsall, showing people working to get themselves and dozens of horses out of the path of the fast-moving fire.
What made you sad?
That horses were killed, horses were injured, some horses made it, some horses didn't, and that trainers got burned and hurt trying to save their horses.
According to a GoFundMe page created for Martine, she lost 2 of her horses in the fire and suffered 2nd and 3rd degree burns to more than 50% of her body.
I just heard about her injuries and how it happened, and I was pretty sad and angry.
The Loves have already raised more than $2,000 and say all of the proceeds are going directly to the Belloc family. Like his name might suggest, Josiah's mom says this is just the latest example of his loving heart.
It's really cool because I've never sold a painting except this one, and it's really exciting.
Prints of Josiah's painting are available on redbubble.com. Now, the story of another artist working in a different medium to create horses and dinosaurs and even drive-through dragons. Take a look at this story from Ken Kramer's About San Diego.
So it's the desert. Sun-baked, nothing but sand and wind-blown scrub brush, nobody around, desert.
And I'm walking, see, and I look there. Something, I think. Nah, couldn't be. Out here? Closer look, and oh, it's real. Real metal. And it's not alone. No, there are dozens of them in ones and twos spread out over acres of the desert as if challenging the monsoon clouds. They seem oddly at home here, unaffected by blowing sand and scorching heat. They are these most improbable, unlikely metal sculptures. More than 130 of them now, including a 350-foot dragon serpent undulating across the desert, just this one so big that a road runs right through it. You know, if you live in Borrego or have visited, or like so many of us have seen them out here off of Borrego Springs Road around an area called Galeta Meadows. But maybe you've wondered, how did this ever happen? Who did this? And that's where we're going to pick up the story, because there was a man, the late Dennis Avery, a whip-smart attorney, Harley-Davidson rider, and heir to the Avery sticky label fortune. You know those Avery peel-off labels? Well, that was his family, and he owned this land out here in Borrego Springs on which he imagined there could be public art. Replicas of prehistoric creatures and whimsical creations on a giant scale. But who could do it? He had to find the right person to do it, a sculptor, really talented, but with a whimsical, happy, playful side. Well, we wanted to find him too, so road trip. An hour's drive from Borrego, about 18 miles east of Temecula, in fact, along Highway 79, suddenly look. More of these metal sculptures alongside the road there, and another one, and a sign, enjoy the view, art by Ricardo Braceda. And then suddenly on the north side of the road, like a Christmas tree lot, is row after row of fantastical creations from Ricardo Braceda. He's the guy who did all those Borrego sculptures and who has welded and hammered out in sheet metal maybe a couple of hundred more here in Aguanga, California.
Hey, look at all I have, you know. I have marlins, horses, cows, donkeys, T-Rexes, rams, octopuses.
One thing about Ricardo, some of his creatures may be frightening and intimidating, but that's not him at all. He'll never be the somber artist brooding over life. This whole metal sculpture thing, he's having the time of his life.
Oh, it's fun. It's more than fun. It's a passion.
Born in Durango, Mexico, all of this started when his daughter asked him if he could make a life-size dinosaur. He did, and it was the first of many. Soon there were fans who started following him in his work. He meets more of them here every day. He calls that his best pay.
The best pay for an artist is when people like what you do, when people enjoy what you do, when people feel what you do.
But he's also become quite the success. He's sold pieces to people who come from as far away as China to see his work. This place, this sort of outdoor showroom, is where this genuinely genial genius is at his happiest.
I have many people come over and enjoying and smiling, and I mean, it's on and on. Every day is like a new day. Who are you going to meet today? What are they going to say?
He's been commissioned to do giant works throughout Southern California. His biggest, that serpent in Borrego Springs. How did he think of it? Did the inspiration come from a dragon book or a picture?
Well, the dragon, I make it myself out of my head. It's not dragons and no books nowhere. I make that dragon in my head.
Every piece, every one of them has its own personality, Ricardo says. Very detail-oriented. Just look at this one, horses and wagon, like they would last forever out here in the elements, and they just might. The cactus he created nearby surely will. But his work also seems to have so much of his sense of fun.
That's right, it's what I do. I make people smile. I make people happy.
An art critic might find hidden meanings in Ricardo's fantastical sculptures. He's changed careers, suffered a debilitating construction injury, and sold cowboy boots before he ever discovered he could do this. And now?
It's better than the San Diego Zoo.
Well, and it's something else, I think. It's inspiring. These pieces of art here and scattered across the desert are an inspiration to think large, think fearlessly.
Focus on something, make it happen, do it. Just do it.
And most of all, have fun.
You can find more stories like that one on Ken Kramer's About San Diego, Thursday nights at 8 here on KPBS. And you can find tonight's stories online at kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening.